Welcome back for another Inventor video. In this video, we're going to be going through Chapter 8, Exercise 4, Angle Support. It's just telling us all the dimensions are in inches at the top of it. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So we're going to start a part, and I'm going to start off by drawing that center cylinder, that circle first. So I'm going to start with that half-inch circle. We'll start a drawing on the XY plane. Pick my circle, 1.0. And next I am going to draw the two brackets that come off of there, or those tangs that come off. So I'm just going to rough sketch those. Being careful to make sure that I have my perpendicularity constraints on here. We'll do this one here while we're at it. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing and just making sure I have my constraints that I want. Okay, so that's a rough, very rough guess at what it's going to look like. So I'm going to start constraining this. I know that it's 0.2. Actually, it wasn't too far away. I'm going to make sure that this is in a horizontal constraint to there. And I need to constrain the distance, which is 1.5. Enter. Okay. All right, so I am going to trim that quick. Trim that. All right. All right, so that looks good. Now I have this one. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start constraining this. Okay, so here you can see I have an issue. I can't dimension that the way that it's calling out there. So when your dimension doesn't want to align properly, in this case we need an aligned dimension, what you need to do is just right click and you can select and force it into a particular alignment. In this case I'm going to select aligned, and it's going to force it to align with that, that line. So 0.2, enter. Next, we need to measure from here to here, and it recognizes that it's going to be an aligned dimension, so it automatically defaults to that. That's 1.75. Okay, we have one other problem here, and that is we need to have this at 30 degrees, so I did forget that. So let's just dimension that from there. That'll be fine. 30, 0.0, enter. Okay, so we're 30 degrees. Now, we have one other problem here, and that is we don't know where this thing lies in this 30-degree arc, right? No idea where it lies. Well, we know where it lies. This center point is lined up with our origin. But how do we constrain that is the question. We could just dimension it, so I could figure out what the dimension is from here to here and call that dimension out, and that would constrain it to a degree. But there's an easier way to do this, and the way I always traditionally have done it is, first off, I'm just going to trim this stuff quick just to get it out of my way. Okay, so that looks good. Now, even though I trim this, it still just shifts it, so it's kind of cool how that works. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a construction line. And I'm going to draw that line straight out, just straight out. And I'm going to add a parallel tolerance for these, so that way it stays parallel to these. I could add a perpendicular tolerance to here too. Either one is fine. But now it's going to control that. But notice my dimension, or my line, length is not controlled. So now what I can do is I can do a coincident to that center, and that will automatically align that to the center. So pretty useful to use them construction lines sometimes. Now I need two more dimensions, and that's just these arcs, because obviously I've broken them, and they probably changed their dimension because you can see they're not dimensioned anymore. So I'm sure they're probably not half-inch. So let's just throw a dimension on those. Well, that one is. Maybe they did stay the same. Nope, that one didn't. So 0.5, and there we go. All right, so that looks good. I'm fully constrained. I just throw my hole in there while I'm here, 0.75. Finish that sketch, and we're going to extrude that. And I'm going to do a mid-plane extrude here. The width is 0.75. Okay, that looks good. All right, now we can add our other features. So let's start with this one. Click on that surface. And looks like I have like a little keyhole there. And we have a circle. 0.2 radius, which means 0.4 diameter. And I have a 0.1. So I gotta zoom in, make sure that I don't. That looks good. So make this 0.1. 0.1, enter. Now, it does not mean this is centered. Once again, I have a bit of an issue here. So I have to define this somehow, and the easiest way to do this one is just to dimension it. 0.5 or 0.05. Okay, so you can see that moved this, and that's okay. All we need to do now is pick. So I picked my vertical, but since I'm in a different orientation for my plane, it's actually a horizontal, so I have to pick my horizontal, and I'm going to get my vertical. So just be aware that can happen. Right there is my origin. If I wanted to, I could slice these graphics, but I'm just gonna find it. There we go. All right, so that looks good. The next thing I need to do is dimension this hole from the edge, and that is 0.5. And it's fully constrained. I just need to trim this, and that might ruin my constraints. It did not. My diameter did stay there, and it took that. Sometimes you have to redo that, as we found out in previous tutorials. All right, so it looks like I am ready to extrude that. I believe everything is there. So let's go ahead and hit finish. Extrude that through all. Okay. And there is our feature. All right, lastly, let's go ahead and add that tab on the end. All right, so to add this tab, I can't really draw on this surface, but I thought ahead. When I created this, you can see my Z or XZ plane bisects that. So I can draw on my XZ plane. So let's create a drawing on there, and I'm just going to rotate this so I can visually look at it the way I want to. And it looks like it is a 3/8 radius, which makes sense because... And let's create that. Let's make that 0.75 just to, because it's not going to call it exactly the way that it is. And let me see where that's dimensioned to. So that's 1.75 from the center point, which is right here, to there. 1.75. And now we'll connect those lines. So my quadrant to the corner. Quadrant to corner. Okay, and I'm going to escape. So I do need one dimension. Let me trim this and see what I need after that, because we are going to trim it. Get rid of that. And of course my diameter disappeared. And is a 0.375, so that's good. One dimension needed. Let me see. What could that be? I wonder if it's not my alignment. Let's take a look at that. I think we already did that, so I'm not sure if that got, nope, that's okay. We have it dimensioned this way. Let's see if we can do our auto dimension and see what happens. Oh, interesting. Okay. So just dimensioning that side, and that is okay with me, actually. So that dimension, I'll just keep that. We'll apply that and hit done. So we're fully constrained, and let's go ahead and finish that sketch and extrude that bidirectional. And it looks like the width of that is 0.1. Okay, so at this point right now, you might be wondering, why didn't I add my hole to that? Well, I'm using design intent here. So looking at this part, there's a hole here and there's a hole in here. Those holes are the same size. So if I were to change the design of this, chances are, it's a really, really good chance, those holes are always going to stay the same size. They probably take a 1/4 inch bolt. And if you were to change it, they would probably both take a 3/8 bolt. So they would change the same. They would change the same amount. So since they would stay the same, I am going to do those in the same operation so that they are tied to each other. So to do that, I'm just going to, I can create it on any plane here. I can create it on this top plane. I can create it on this plane. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to extrude. I can extrude both ways and cut a hole. But I'm going to just do it on this top plane so it's visible. I could do it on my mid plane, my I think it's my XZ, yeah, my XZ plane, and extrude it both directions through all. It really, really doesn't matter in this case. At least nothing I can think of, put it that way. So I'm going to come in. My hole is a 1/4 inch. So first thing I'm going to do is just line that to center, 0.25 and 0.25. And I know that this one is not in the right location. It's actually dimensioned a 1/2 inch from there. And this one is dimensioned from here. Okay, that's good. And we're fully constrained. Okay. So now that we're fully constrained, what I'm going to do is actually delete this 1/4 inch. And I'm going to say that I want this to be equal to that. So now, if I just change one of these, the other one will change as well. And I'm going to finish that sketch, and I'm going to extrude those both through all, and hit OK. And there we go. That is our finished part, I believe. It does not have a material for us to apply. I don't think I missed anything. I'm not seeing any features that I'm missing. So the only thing I need to do is go back and name all my features. Profile extrude, keyhole extrude, tab extrude, and 0.25 extrude. Okay. So everything is named, and just to double check, make sure everything is fully constrained, and it is. So that's all for this lesson. If you have questions, as always, you can see me during my office hours, or of course you can see me during class.